How to get the square root of decimals. So today, we will get the square root of 0.158. Let's go to step number 1. Step number 1 is write the number with the radical sign. So this is the radical sign. On to our next step, step number 2. So for step number 2, each digit must have a pair. But how do we pair the digits of a decimal? Should it be like this? No, it should not be like this. 0.1 cannot be a pair. 58 cannot be a pair. So how do we pair this? When pairing digits of decimals, we pair the whole number parts and decimal parts separately. So the pairs should be like this. We will put a 0 in front of the number as the pair of our whole number part, which is 0. So now we have one pair, 0, 0. Now time to pair the decimal parts of the number. We put 0 again after 8. So 8 will have a pair and the value of the number did not change. This is the correct way of pairing the digits of decimals. So now we have 3 pairs, 0, 0, 15, and 80. So let's move on to our next step. Number 3. Find the number whose square is less than or equal to the first pair. So our first pair is 0, 0. So we will be finding that number by using trial and error. So let's try 1. Remember, you should find a number whose square is less than or equal to the first pair. So our first number here for trial and error is 1. So 1 squared is equals to 1. It says here that the square of the number should be less than or equal to the first pair, which is 0. So the square of 1 is 1 and it is greater than 0. So this cannot be our number. So let's try one more trial and error. Let's try 0. So 0 squared is equals to 0. So it says here that the square of the number should be less than or equal to the first pair, which is 0. So in our case, 0 is equals to 0. So now this is what we are looking for. We will write this number above and beside our radical sign and then subtract its square, which is 0, to our first pair. So 0 minus 0 is equals to 0, and then we will bring down our second pair, which is 15. Now let's move on to our next step. Step number 4. We multiply the number at the top by 2. Our number at the top is 0. Multiplying the number at the top by 2 is a general rule for getting the square root. So 0 times 2 is equals to 0. Now we will put their product over here. And then let's move on to our next step. Step number 5. This is the trickiest part, so pay close attention. In this step, we will be using trial and error to find the missing numbers. The missing numbers are over here and over here. So the rule for trial and error is you must get the number with the highest possible product that can be subtracted to 15. 15 is over here, our second pair. So the highest possible product should be less than or equal to 15. How do we do the trial and error? We take the 0 over here and use it as the first digit of our multiplicand. And then we will use random one-digit numbers for trial and error. So let's try 2. Remember that the numbers on the right must always be the same. 0, 2 times 2 is equals to 4. It says here that you must get the number with the highest possible product that can be subtracted to 15. The highest possible product should be less than or equal to 15. So 4 is less than or equal to 15, but it may not be the highest possible product that can be subtracted. So let's try another number. We will take this again and use it as the first digit of our multiplicand. And now let's try 3. Remember that the numbers on the right must always be the same. So 3 times 3 is equals to 9. Now for our rule, 9 is less than or equal to 15. And it may be the highest possible product that can be subtracted. But for us to be sure, let's try one more number. So we will take this again. And then let's try 4. Remember that the numbers on the right must always be the same. So 4 times 4 is equals to 16. Now do you remember our rule? It says here that the highest possible product should be less than or equal to 15. So since 16 is higher than 15, so this cannot be our highest possible product. And since this is not the highest possible product, 4, there's a product higher than 4, then this cannot be 2. So our highest possible product is 9. So now we put 3 over here. They are our missing numbers. And then we will subtract the highest possible product to 15. So 15 minus 9 is equals to 6. And then we bring down our third pair, which is 80. So that makes 680. Now don't forget to put a decimal point here in between 0 and 3 because there's a decimal point here. And now let's move on to our next step, step number 6. Just like what we did in step number 4, we multiply the number at the top by 2. So the number at the top is 0.3. Well, this will be a little different because now we have a decimal point. What will we do with the decimal? Well, we just simply ignore the decimal point. So it becomes 3. 3 times 2 is equals to 6. Remember to ignore this decimal point when multiplying by 2. So it should not be 0.3 times 2. It should be 3 times 2. So we'll put their product over here. Step number 7. So now we will use trial and error again to find our missing numbers over here and over here. So I will read the rule once again. You must get the number with the highest possible product that can be subtracted to 680. So you see, it is 680 now. It's no longer 15 because we have moved on to our next step. So the highest possible product should be less than or equal to 680. So once again, we will be taking this 6 over here and use it as the first digit of our multiplicand. And we will again use one-digit numbers for our trial and error. So now let's try 8. Remember that the numbers on the right must always be the same. So 68 times 8 is equals to 544. Now do you remember our rule? It says here that it should be the highest possible product and less than or equal to 680. So 544 is less than or equal to 680. But it may not be the highest possible product that can be subtracted to 680. So let's try one more number. We use this again as our multiplicand. And now let's try 9. So 69 times 9 is equals to 621. So for our rule, it says that highest possible product and should be less than or equal to 680. So 621 is less than or equal to 680. And it is our highest possible product since it says that we can only use one-digit numbers for our trial and error. This is our highest one-digit number. So now, it's our missing number. We'll put 9 over here and 9 over here too. And then subtract 621 to 680. Now let's try to clear up space. So we have a remainder of 59. 0.158 is an imperfect square. So you can choose to continue this or not, since the square root of an imperfect square goes up to infinity. So there are still a lot more digits for that. But as for me, I will be rounding this off here because I can solve up to infinity. So for our next step, step number 8, we will be rounding the square root off to the nearest tens. So 0.39. So our number at tens place is 3 and decided is 9. And since 9 is greater than 5, then we will round this number up. So 3 will become 4. So it will become 0.4 and 9 will be 0. For short, we can do it like that. So now that is the square root of 0.158 rounded to the nearest tens. I hope you have learned something. Thank you very much for listening. Bye! Check out our videos, how to get the square root of perfect squares, how to get the square root of imperfect squares, my reviewers with complete answers and solutions. Stay tuned for more!